how can we be assured that the technological revolutions being discussed have a spiritual ethic, however we define that, so that human beings in the natural environment do not become irrelevant?
I think it's incredibly necessary. If we'd gone back in the 60s and had instrumented the coal-fired plants and the fossil fuel plants and knew the damage we were doing to the climate, we might have done things very differently. And the technologies we have today are billions of times more powerful than they were 20 years ago. And so when we see people building systems of these new technologies, for God's sakes, instrument the hell out of them. And we've done actually a pretty good job. In the 70s, the biotech world got together and created the Asilomar guidelines and said, if you have an infectious substance and you spill it, what should you have at hand to clean it up? Who should you call? How do you secure the area, et cetera, et cetera? And we've not had a major accident in 40 years. And that kind of systemic thinking, again, back to the earlier point of think through the systemic implications of when things go wrong or not, means that you can actually do things very powerfully. I'm a huge, obviously, technology optimist from the point of view that technology is a major driver of progress in the world. And frankly, it might be the only major driver of progress we've ever had, and by far the most powerful. Now we have a dozen technologies accelerating, gets us super excited about where the world is going. The big challenge is how do you extract the promise without the peril, right, of it? And we've done a pretty good job up till now. We've extracted incredible amounts of value from the steam engine and from machines and engines and fossil fuels, etc. Now we have to take in the whole cost of it. And I was talking to a guy called Lawrence Bloom, who gave me the best kind of metaphor for how to think about the transition the world is going through right now. He said, think about a rocket in multiple stages going into Earth. You have the big fat booster rocket that's blowing energy out the back end and then getting you out of Earth orbit. And once it's there, you jettison that big fat horrible rocket, and you have a much smaller, more elegant craft that takes you to the next level. And we're kind of at that inflection point where capitalism and fossil fuels and so on have gotten us to this incredible point. And now we need to jettison that and come up with new, lighter, more elegant, structured craft for where we're going. And when I think about the human spirit, we're very, very close to being able to cover the bottom 2 or 3 layers of Maslow's hierarchy using technology, lifespan, better healthcare, better education, etc. And now more people can spend their time on the high order thinking. And when we've studied technologies, and when you study societies in the past that reach abundance, the Romans or the Aryans taking over India or the whatever, they tend to do 4 activities: sex, music, food, and art, not in that order.
Yes, I completely agree with you that technology has been, probably the single most important driver of progress across the centuries. Our ability to make tools, our ability and desire to shape, even the way our tongues and palates evolved that allowed us to make a wide variety of differentiated sounds, which enabled us to communicate more complex, higher order thinking. That's a technology as well. And, the fact that we learned to read, reshaped our brains, that the fact that we are now absorbing huge amounts of information from multiple sources, with plastic minds, is again another order of magnitude of acceleration and advance. And so the question is not, do we have the technologies, but which technologies should we deploy? And, I don't think we've ever consciously said, oh, yes, let's build that and not that. The Manhattan Project said, well, we could not build this because we know this is going to be a horrible technology. On the other hand, we have to build this because it's going to stop the war. And so, I feel like we have another moment like Asilomar, they were talking about recombinant DNA back in the 70s. And it's like, what are the models that we can look to that are being experimented with today that can help give us a sense of how to choose technologies and how to deploy them in ways that preserve and enhance our humanity as opposed to enslave us?
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.